Hello and welcome to Console Cowboys. So today we're going to talk about what I've been working on as far as Python and exploiting smart contracts and all that blockchain stuff that you guys love. But before we get into that, if you have any questions about what I'm doing or suggestions of what I should add into this and it makes sense, leave them in the comments below. If you're excited about me putting out this new content or the CTF that's going to go with this, comment below, let me know what's going on, give me feedback, as well as if you're not following me on Twitter, go do that at @fiction with a 0. It should be in like the thing below the video or whatever. Start following me on there because I'll start talking about things I'm working on there and give updates all the time, as well as sometimes I post screenshots of things I'm hacking. So what am I working on? Well, it's going to be blockchain exploitation. It's going to be Python. We're going to dive into a lot of security subjects that probably really don't exist, but in my mind they do, and this is the way I do things, right? So a lot of it's just research and development that I am working on. Now I have a document in front of me. This document is about 121 pages now. I anticipate it's going to be hundreds of pages. I don't know if I'm going to release this document. I don't know if I'm going to put it into a book, but it's kind of my way to organize things that I'm going to put into video or put into a course or live streams. And it has stuff in here like, scoping engagements and threat modeling, etc. I may or may not release that stuff. It depends if I do a book. But what we are going to get into, regardless of what format I put it in, and if you have a format suggestions, write them below. I may do live streams that are paid. I may do ones that are free. I may do a course that's paid. I may just drop videos for free. I really don't know. But here's what we're going to cover, or things I anticipate covering, which is not everything because I come up with new stuff all the time. But we have web3.py. So that is your Python library. And we're going to dive into that thing pretty deep. We're going to make contract interactions, call contracts, execute functions, pull data back, right? And then what we want to do is communicate with, more robust contracts like our decentralized exchanges, right? If you've wanted to write a bot, like a trading bot or something that's running front-running attacks or, something that's monitoring thing that's going on those decentralized exchanges, we're going to cover some stuff like, just simple stuff, making swaps on these exchanges, sending transactions, just interacting with Python in general, which is a good starting point for you to just write your business logic around how to interact with these and then do whatever you want to do. So you can write bots from that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to cover manual transactions, right? All the tedious details that go into a transaction that you probably don't know about, or you do know about, and it's kind of a pain in the ass to handle. So you got to write all this stuff out, your announces and your private keys and, all this stuff. And it takes a while just to do a simple transfer from one person to the other. In your wallet, you press a button. In this, it's a lot more tedious. Now, once we know how to do this and how it actually works, well, we don't want to do it ever again because it sucks. So we're going to automate it with frameworks. And these frameworks are going to take details like accounts and private keys and handle those for us. And, connecting with contracts and all of these things are going to be basically just writing regular Python code with a little bit of base stuff in the code that's kind of boilerplate, but not much. It really handles a lot of things for it and makes our life a lot easier. From this, automating the transactions with frameworks, you can also write tests if you're like a developer. A lot of developers like to write tests, or auditors like to write tests, and I'll show how to do that. Not really what I do. I prefer just automating the code straight up. But you can write tests that check states of the blockchain before and after things and all those sorts of things, and check your assertions about what should be going on. And if you're handed code, it's good to know how those work because you want to run all those tests before you audit a contract anyway and see what's actually going on. Now, once we know how to automate all that stuff, we want to start looking at how to automate our attacks, right? We want to automate attacks against our contracts as well as automate multi-stage attacks against smart contracts. So if we have like 3, 4, 5 steps that we have to do to get where we want to go, we can use Python to just go through, automate it, check states on the blockchain before it does different processes, and it's all really easy to do with simple Python. Now, before we do that, I'll do a quick primer on auditing contracts. We'll look at some code, nothing too comprehensive. It just gets you in the right mindset of how to review these. Now, with all of this said though, You need to know how to script and to code. Nothing crazy, but you should understand Solidity code. You should understand basic Python scripting as a hacker would. I'm a terrible developer. You can be a terrible developer too, but you need to understand how to automate things. And I'll give you a quick example of that. So I'm in our favorite Kali here that everybody loves, and I have a script I'm about to run. Now this script is going to launch a local blockchain, and then it's going to, deploy a contract. It's going to pull storage, out of memory in private variables. And then it's going to check some states, pull some passwords, make some transactions, and then bypass restrictions, right? And I can do that all with Python. You'll see here, I launched Ganache locally, or we could have just connected to the blockchain and done this if we didn't want to do it locally. And here, we're deploying our contract on the chain. Here's our transaction, all of our information. Then we're gonna pull some, passwords out of memory. Oh, look, our password is test123. Awesome. Okay, there's a locking feature on this contract. Is it locked? Yes, true. Let's unlock that sucker. And we automated with Python, right? Sending a transaction to unlock it, right? We have multi-stage. We're pulling storage variables. We're unlocking contracts. Well, now let's check the state of it. Yes, it's unlocked. So let's check our current balance. Looks like we have, I don't know, this is 10 Ether or 1 Ether, whatever it is. 18 zeros, and then whatever that 1 is, and then whatever extra zeros. But anyway, we have 1 0 0 0 0 0. Then we're gonna withdraw all the funds because we unlocked it and we have the password. And then we'll go down and check our balance again, and yeah, look at that. We have some more. I think that was 10 Ether, and then we pulled an extra 3 Ether there, right? Then we're gonna terminate our client, right? But that was all done with Python. We ran 3 transactions, like actual transactions that made state changes, and then we also made multiple transactions, or calls rather, that checked data to know what we needed to do next. It was all done with a Python script. And that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna automate multi-stage attacks. And we're gonna show how to do the old stuff. We're gonna look at a little more complex stuff. I'll probably post up some full dApps and be like, hey, here's what this dApp does. Audit the code, find the vulnerability. Tell me what these vulnerabilities are. And then I may post something and be like, okay, here's all the vulnerabilities that people posted that they found. And here's the other stuff that maybe you missed. Now write me some exploits based on the stuff that we taught you. And then maybe I'll do a video on how I would automate that and show you that with some more complex examples after the fact with this course, right? Things I'm thinking about doing, things I'm working on. But then after we get through all the contract stuff, right, we want to get into some of the stuff like I was getting into in network monitoring with JavaScript. Let's do it with Python. Let's, check our network's communications. Let's set up some simple IDS monitoring, like monitoring an address for transactions, things like that, looking at live data as it's coming in. We'll get into some Python asynchronous programming within this. So that's always fun, learning how to use asynchronous libraries to really speed up API calls and such, or subscribe to events on the blockchain, right? So that's all cool stuff. We'll get into some of the forensic stuff like I was getting into before with Etherscan APIs and looking at stuff like, on-chain DeFi attacks, right? We have front running and sandwich attacks, which is stuff we talked about before, and how to parse that out and find those live on the blockchain as they're coming in, and really understand how those attacks work by looking what happened on chain, right? And then we got stuff like flash loans. If you don't know what those are fun little things like running a whole bunch of crap in one transaction with $1 million that you borrowed, that in the end you make a whole bunch of profit. You never used a single dollar of your own. All these things happened in one transaction. Could have been like 30 things going back and forth. Now, what does that look like, and what does that entail, and how do we, parse that? How do we look for that on the blockchain, or how do we look at an attack on the blockchain and decipher what happened? So we'll go through a good example there, give you some understanding of these DeFi type of attacks related right back to the stuff that we talked about with, connecting to decentralized exchanges, how those swap works and all that type of stuff, because you're going to use these decentralized exchanges with these flash loan attacks and these sandwich attacks, et cetera, and that's how those work. Right? So we want to look at those forensically and be able to understand those at a detailed level, not a philosophical level. We'll get into philosophical stuff, but then we want to look in detail about how these actually work and what actually happened, right? You know me, I'm not all about let's talk about fluffy subjects. I want to look what actually happened and give real value to things that I don't see in other places, right? And, some of the old stuff is like programming. Now, like I said, you need to understand Solidity, you need to understand Python, and you should be good. Now, we will probably, maybe, dive into some other stuff in there like assembly stuff for that and be able to decode that and understand what's happening at an assembly level. Very basic level, nothing too crazy, but how to decompile those and take a look at stuff, also valid. And the other thing we kind of want to look at, I don't know how detailed I'm getting into it, but static code standards, running it, it'll help augment your, I don't know if that's the correct word, but it'll help you find vulnerabilities in smart contracts, simple stuff and mistakes, and linters, stuff like that looking for those syntactical issues that then can turn into vulnerabilities, how to leverage that but not lean on it too hard in your auditing. And then we want to look at some stuff like symbolic execution and fuzzing, simple examples of that to, play around. They're probably more useful locally. You're not really going to probably use it as much on chain, but let's say you got some code, you're doing some auditing, you see where there might be some vulnerabilities, but there's a lot of things that can happen there. We want to automate those things and send a whole bunch of transactions and really kind of get it to break and give us back what we want, guess things, fuzz things, go through number blocks, etc., and figure out what's going on, whether it's at an assembly level or just a regular code level in the Solidity, right? We use things like Echidna in there doing that, and Slither, and I think Mithril, or those types of things to start looking at that from that perspective. A lot of good tools there. I don't know how deep I'm going to dive into there, but there are stuff like, I believe it is Mithril is Python based, so it's a good thing to learn how to write some simple stuff with that, and also it'll help you automate some of those finding of things statically as well. So that's kind of what we're going to look at. And I don't know, just leave me some comments below. I got a lot of stuff going on and I'm really not sure how I'm going to deliver it yet, right? I might do a full paid for legitimate course. I really don't know, but we'll see what's going on. Let me know what you think below.